high jobs pushed up the US dollar. Why? Because it gives a lot more reason for Jay Powell to increase the rates. Jobs everywhere. I mean, they're coming down from the heavens. This is what always blows my mind, that number one, why would somebody in rural Canada care about some guy in another country in the United States getting an extra job at Chipotle? I mean, why does it affect you at all? And it really, really does. I'm going to show you why it affects you, number one. The second thing that really blows my mind is Canada has hundreds of economists that are working on the government's payroll. The United States has thousands of economists that are working on their payroll. How did they get it so wrong? If you guys didn't see earlier, we had over 500,000 jobs added to the US market. My goodness, when you add that many jobs that can push wage spiral up, everyone asking for more and more wages, which can then give more power to the central bank to raise those interest rates again, which means your mortgage might be more expensive because some guy is driving for Uber on the weekend. Now, let's get into this first article that I'd like to share with you. This is what happened to the dollar because of the interest rate going up. But why would it go up? Now, let's go back to the article. The jobs report increased 517,000 in January. Now, completely crushed the estimates. As I said, how did everybody get this so wrong? And the unemployment rate hit a 53-year low. It has not been this way in a very, very long time. The article goes on to talk about that the January jobs report shows that non-farm payrolls increased at 517,000. The estimate before this was 187,000. Imagine that they were off by over 300,000. What is that? 325,000 jobs. Unbelievable. Now, this is the lowest level since 1969. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, David, isn't it fantastic that everyone has a job right now? Isn't that a great thing? This is the problem. There's no balance if everybody has a job because there's so many people looking for jobs. People have to offer higher and higher wages in order to attract some kind of a worker. But if they do that, then the cost of the goods, maybe the food at their restaurant or the widget that they're making, you now have to charge more for that because you're paying so much in labor. And this is that wage spiral that it can go into where it's constantly going up. So let's go back to the article. Leisure and hospitality added 128,000 jobs. So leisure and hospitality, does that surprise you? Well, you know, a lot of people have been home for many, many months now, many years in some cases, and they're not being able to get out, and people are now flying and traveling and doing stuff. And that industry was one of the hardest hit industries. So to see a rebound, not too surprising in something like that. Let's go back and see the next one. Then it says professional and business services, 82,000. Amazing. Love hearing that. That's great. Government, 74,000. My goodness, you're still hiring within the government. We're now topping out at 25% of all your tax dollars goes just to maintaining the government. That's double what it should be. And then the healthcare workers, 58,000, of course, they're hiring like crazy because so many people were quitting. So if you talk to a lot of nurses and doctors in your area, these people were forced because they were declared pandemic and they couldn't take vacations. They couldn't take sick days. Now, this depends on where you are, obviously, what jurisdiction, but a lot of people had to work for 3 years straight, pulling overtime, working on weekends and all kinds of stuff. So it's not a real surprise that they're filling that, but that's all not new positions. That is filling in some old positions from people that had quit before. So those jobs really, really surprised me. A couple of them didn't surprise me at all. Now, if we look at Canada where we are, we have this guy, big old Tiff Macklem. This guy is the governor, and he is talking for the Bank of Canada that it was overheated. But I liked this one paragraph where he mentioned inflation and employment are linked. The best contribution the Bank of Canada can make for Canadians is to keep prices low and stable. Funny that they failed on both of those things. That's because inflation is near our 2% target and what economists call maximum sustainable employment. Remember those words, maximum sustainable employment, because without the sustainable part, it doesn't work. 100% of people cannot be working. It's not even possible. When the economy is operating above maximum sustainable employment, businesses can't find enough workers to keep up with the demand. As a result, prices go up, inflation rises. So that is what they call that wage spiral going up. We can't be above that, and that's what's happening right now. So Wall Street, if we go look at Big Papa Powell, he's a different cat, this guy. And if we look at this article right here, it says, unlike his predecessors, including Alan Greenspan is the Federal Reserve of the United States back in the 90s. And he was the kind of the first guy who started on this massive money printing. His protege was Ben Bernanke, who got a Nobel Prize for printing so much money and bailing all the governments out in 2008. You guys might remember him. And so if we look at this, Ben Bernanke got a Nobel Prize, Janet Yellen just recently, and Jerome Powell is not an economist. He is a lawyer. Of course he's a lawyer, you guys. And this is why he says things in a different way. But is he up for the job? I don't really know. But remember, it's not just him. He's just the mouthpiece of that. Now, if we go to a transcript of Jerome Powell's speech, this was on December 14th, but he was talking about employment being a problem. And he says the labor market remains extremely tight with employment near a 50-year low. We've actually blown through that now. Job vacancies are still very high and wage growth is elevated. Remember that the wage growth is what he is worried about. People asking for an increase in their salary. So when the cost of living goes up 10%, they're going to ask for a 10% raise in salary to even things out. Here is the thing. Here is the magic trick that happens within governments. When the cost of living goes up 10%, they're only going to give you a 2% wage. You're 8% short. That 8% comes out of your quality of life. So when inflation is above your raises, that is a reduction in the quality of life that you have, less things you can buy for your friends and family. So where the government is talking about, if we go back even to the 80s, when we put interest rates at 20%, do you remember who that was? That was Paul Volcker. Volcker said it back then, Americans have to have a lower quality of life, a lower standard of living. And he said that flat out. But we kind of hide things now. We're not as direct these days. We try to say some fun words so people don't actually know what's going on. Let's go back to what he said here. Wage growth is elevated. Now, employment, they were talking about how much, although job vacancies have moved below their highs and the pace of job gains has slowed, the labor market continues to be, here are the words, out of balance. They cannot be out of balance employment. We need to have unemployment sitting higher at 6%, something like that. 10 is way too high. Where we are now at 3.5 is way too low, way out of balance, with demand substantially exceeding the supply of available workers. Please note what he continues to say. Out of balance labor. We cannot have this many people working. The labor force participation rate is little changed since the beginning of the year, and they expect supply and demand conditions in the labor market to come in better balance over time, easing upward pressure on wages and prices. Please take a second to understand what that means. Remember, this guy is a lawyer, right, when he's saying this. So let's take it. The market is out of balance. Demand for workers is too high, and the labor force participation rate has not changed. And they expect the labor market to come into better balance over time. What does that mean? They need unemployment at 6%, but right now it's at 3%. It's going to come to a better balance over time, meaning 3% of people have to lose their jobs. And what happens if they lose their jobs? Then they got to move. They got to sell their homes. They can't pay their mortgage. It could be a foreclosure. Like 3% is a big number. So for them just to say, oh, it'll come into balance over time, or we expect a softening in the job market, like we have to be able to translate this into what does it actually mean for me, for my friends, for my neighbors, my family. So take a look at what happened when he made that announcement this morning, just around 9 o'clock. If we look at the price of gold, gold just went off like a crater. So you can go to goldprice.org. As soon as gold was chugging along through the night, we were at $2,555 Canadian, and it dropped all the way down to $24.94 immediately. So as soon as he said that, why did those prices drop? So gold overall dropped 2%, silver dropped 4.5% today. Also, as soon as they made that mention, like a cliff, falling straight down gold price, straight down silver price, and What happened to the US dollar? The dollar skyrocketed going up. Boom, and it went right up like rocket ship, okay? Straight up, not even at an angle, straight up. Now, it went up at the end of the day 1.21%, 1.23%. And if we look at that type of stuff and put that in relation, like you're talking about currencies that generally move 1 or 2, 3% in a year, to move 1.23% in a day is big. This is a big move for a currency when we're talking about the size of the US economy. So understand, high jobs pushed up the US dollar. Why? Because it gives a lot more reason for Jay Powell to increase the rates. We were expecting 2 more rate increases, so it gives them even more ammunition to raise those rates again. And when you raise those rates again, you get higher treasury yields, higher bond yields, and that is now going to funnel into the US through all these other countries. That pushes the dollar up, but then we don't need commodities as much as a safety, so then they dump commodities. Now, remember at the beginning when I mentioned, who cares by us living in Canada or Australia or Europe or anywhere else? Who cares if somebody got an extra couple jobs at Chipotle or whatever, like I said? Because when they measure employment, just say that you were having trouble making your bills working at McDonald's. You could go now and get 2 other part-time jobs. But the way they calculate it, they now say 2 more people are working. Even though it's just you and you have 3 jobs, they're now counting it as 3. So it's not the whole picture. But when more and more people are getting these jobs and there's less job openings out there, now it gives them more reason to raise those interest rates. If they raise their interest rates, remember the euro, all the European Union or Britain or Canada or Australia, we all kind of follow suit for what the US does because of the world reserve currency. So a lot of people kind of think that Canada mentioned their rate announcement 2 weeks ago and then the US, but it's not that way. Because it happens every 6-8 weeks or whatever, the United States today is the leader, and then it just takes Canada several weeks to go and catch up to what the states are doing. So remember that it's the states that lead it. So when we see the Americans have this amazing job report, we know that the likelihood of an even bigger, possibly, interest rate is coming in the future, which will then raise that rate again for Canada. And we're going to have to end up paying more and more on our interest rate. Remember, Canada and the United States, the 2 economies are like joined at the hip. The majority of what we send in Canada is raw natural resources, and we send them all to the United States. Fun fact, the majority of all of our, we don't have states, we call them provinces. The majority of them all have better deals for export to the US than they even do amongst themselves. So Canada can't even get along together to trade amongst each other. All of them, all individually, all 10 just shipped down to the United States. Unbelievable, right? How screwed up is that? Anyway, again, more bureaucracy, more red tape. What can we do? But this is what I mean. Some guy working at Chipotle down in California is going to affect your payment when you live in Alberta, Canada, or something like that, just because of that. So do you see that link? Do you see that chain? Now, higher interest rates. Higher interest rates will hurt us in the short run. But the reason why they're raising these rates isn't necessarily for what you think. They need more room to fight the next recession that is coming. And so they know that a recession is coming. They know something is there, but they were already at 0% rates. They could not go below that. What are they supposed to go down to? -5? That can't happen. So they need to have some room in order to drop it the next time there's something in trouble. And when we looked through that list earlier, that Alan Greenspan was the guy who started this off back in the 90s. You may remember that term, Greenspan put. If you don't know what that is, try to look it up. And I think it's good reading for you all. So it does affect you, whether we like it or not. A lot of people don't understand those little links, how they're all connected, but it affects all of us. So it's good to make a check at what happens there. So I love fishing, you guys. I don't know if you guys like fishing, but there's a lot of rivers of the world. And as these rivers go out, they kind of dump into the ocean. But right at the top, sometimes they'll call it the headwaters or something. But if you found something downstream, say there's a lot of fish, or say the water was funky or something, you could always go up the stream to find out where the water is coming from and see if the problem is up there. When we are looking at the United States from a world perspective, because it's the world currency, the world reserve currency, it's right at the top. It's the headwaters. Jerome Powell is the most important person for the world economy right now. So we got to watch up here because we have a very good idea where that water is going to go down and what path it's going to take to get to the ocean. Do you know what I mean? So this is a forward-looking predictor. smart investors always have to be looking forward, not looking backwards. Make any sense? Hey guys, if this helped you at all, please send it to your friends, send it to your family. Hopefully I earned your subscription today, and we'll talk to you on the next video. Thanks so much for coming by. Thanks so much for sticking around. If you like that video, you might like this one and maybe something like that.